These are my early Premier League predictions. Now that Southampton, Leicester and Ipswich Town are all confirmed to be in the Premier League, these are my predictions from 20 to 1st. And number 1 is a huge surprise for a lot of people who watch my content. We're starting off at number 20, and this is no slight on Brentford. On Brentford fans, I think they've been a decent addition to the Premier League. Their story of kind of being in the Championship for as many years as they were, trying to get promoted, failed a couple of times in kind of playoff pushes, and finally get there with Thomas Frank, who holds himself to the highest caliber in the league and represents Brentford very, very well. I think the steam will run out for Brentford. I think there's a good chance he will go. All these predictions are based on, obviously, speculation going into summer, but Thomas Frank, it feels like it's the right time to go. Ivan Toney feels like it's the right time to go. And I don't think Brentford, you don't see them usually splash the cash. I think they've struggled in the past to kind of compete with the big clubs for transfers. Obviously, in the summer, they failed to get Brennan Johnson across the line. He went to Spurs instead. So if they lose Ivan Toney, they lose Thomas Frank, they'll get relegated. They'll run out of steam. Visitors of a fantastic player, of course, and Buemo as well, who's had injury problems last season. But that is about it, keeping them in the league, in my opinion. They were a little bit flat at the back end of this season as well. I think Brentford will run out of steam and come 20th. At 19th, it's Southampton. They showed so much quality to win the playoffs, beating West Brom, a good West Brom side, good Leeds United side as well. I thought Leeds United were guaranteed to get promoted, but they bottled it. Let's be completely real. The Southampton side don't have the quality. They've not shown in the last 5 to 10 years that they're willing to invest in the same way. Not every club can invest, and Southampton don't strike me as a club that are going to spend the money needed to really punch above their weight in the Premier League. And that leads me to think they're going to be close to a Sheffield United. They're going to be closer to a Burnley than maybe some of the other clubs that have kind of got promoted, like Forest, and spent big money and kept themselves in the league by hook or by crook. Russell Martin is a fantastic young manager. Of all the top 5 leagues in Europe, Southampton have got the most highest possession at 66%. So this is a side that, when they get into the Premier League, will they be able to keep that kind of form going? Will they be able to keep possession? What will they be like when they knock on Everton's door, when they knock on Brighton's door, and some of these mid-table sides, and they get smashed by these lot? That's what I think is going to happen. Unless something crazy happens in the transfer market, they need 2 or 3 top quality players to keep them in the league. Russell Martin's a fantastic, young, exciting coach, but I don't think it will be enough. But I've been fair by not putting them bottom, because I'm hoping that the Championship clubs that get promoted this season don't do as badly as last season. At 18th, it's Nottingham Forest. These guys are a couple of big sales away, maybe because of financial fair play, maybe because they want to kick on their careers. You're talking about Morgan Gibbs-White in particular. You're looking at Callum Hudson-Odoi, who might already be looking for a big move. And then you think about the kind of behind the scenes, the ownership. They're very, very trigger happy in terms of getting rid of managers. And I do worry about Nuno Espirito Santo, their long term. Obviously, right now, he's kept them in the league. He's got them defensively a little bit better than Steve Cooper had them, but it wasn't a pretty season, and there are only a couple of players leaving from getting relegated, in my honest opinion. At 17th, just staying in the Premier League, will be Ipswich Town. I'm factoring a few things here. Firstly, most of that squad that got promoted from even League One to the Championship will stay together. It's not like when a Championship club has an incredible signing, one big player that maybe shouldn't be in the Championship, and then he gets poached and the club struggles. I think there's a squad there that are all operating on momentum that obviously Kieran McKenna's built. So I think they're going to be able to keep 90% of that side, have a bit of smart investment. The Ipswich kind of owners and the model of how Ipswich kind of transform themselves in League One after getting relegated from the Championship. Someone like Mark Ashton, who's high up at the club there. I back that they will be able to bring in quality to keep them just about in the league. I think they'll be smart enough to do it if they lose Kieran McKenna. If they keep Kieran McKenna, which is unlikely at this point upon recording this video, then maybe they're higher in the league. But I'd like to believe that a side with as much momentum as Ipswich, with the atmosphere at Portman Road, their first time in the Premier League for over 2 decades, I think it is, you have to believe that somewhere there is that kind of belief and that energy that they can surprise the Forests and the Brentfords of the world, who have plateaued a little bit in the league, and they will stay in the Premier League. I think they'll just about do it in 17th, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. At 16 is Fulham. Again, if they lose Marco Silva, who will be right at the top of the manager merry-go-round when a big club sacks their manager mid-season, even in the summer. I think they're going to struggle for goals. I think Paulinho could be on the move. Robinson at left back's fantastic. So there are a couple of Adebayo, of course, going to potentially Chelsea or Manchester United. Obviously, former Man City academy player himself. So they're a couple of signings away from being really flat next season. Again, staying in the Premier League for Fulham is always a good campaign. So I think they'll just about stay in the league in 16th. Bournemouth in 15th. If they lose Iriola, if they lose Dom Solanke, that goes right down. But upon recording, they are at the club, and I don't think Iriola is going to go anywhere. He's obviously got a brand new contract. Dom Solanke, maybe next summer I could see him moving, but one more summer at Bournemouth, I think that makes a lot of sense for me. I think he'll keep them in the league, and don't be surprised if Bournemouth make a real run in one of the cups, maybe a League Cup run this season, and have a go, because if you stay in the Premier League, and they've been in the Premier League for 6-7 years in the last 10, obviously a couple of relegation here and there, you want them to be going in for a cup run, but I think they'll be more than good enough to stay in the Premier League. Leicester City, just above Bournemouth. Again, the momentum from the Championship's huge. The way they got promoted out of it was fantastic with the points total, and I know they fell away in the second half of the season, but if they can replicate that form in the first half of the season from the Championship in the Premier League, even for a third of the campaign, they'll be pushing way above most sides. And if you actually break down the spine of that Leicester City side that got promoted, there are so many players that could be Premier League players. You're looking at Harry Winks is a Premier League player, no question about it. Pereira at right back is Premier League. Obviously, Ndidi as well is a fantastic midfielder. I'm a huge fan of Amavidi as well. He's a fantastic winger. And I like Fatawu as well. Iheanacho's in the squad. So they've got lots of players. James Justin's coming back from injury as well. Obviously, he's been out for so long, and he's been involved as well. There's a lot of players in that Leicester City side that will just get them back into the Premier League. And this is going to be the wake-up call for Leicester City and Leicester City fans, because they were, coming fifth, winning FA Cups in that kind of 2021 period of time. Now it's just about staying in the Premier League and not being a yo-yo side. Next up is Wolves. A lot of Wolves fans will be frustrated at the back end of the Premier League campaign where they were dropping points left, right and centre. And if it wasn't for a good first half of the season where it kind of guaranteed their safety and security, then that form is relegation form. You could argue that they deserve it with a threadbare squad, a manager that is new, and he's just kind of got enough energy out of that squad, enough performances out of the likes of Lamina, Hwang, Ait-Nouri as well, to get them safe. And then they kind of rested a little bit, and that's maybe justified based on where we thought Wolves would be at the start of last season, which a lot of people thought would be relegated. So I think they'll stay in the league, but if they lose a couple of players, / Gary O'Neill, they could get relegated, in my opinion. But at the moment, they're all there, and I think they'll finish 13th. Right, Brighton, I think they'll keep a load of their players, maybe sell one, maybe an Evan Ferguson goes for £80 million, £70 million. They've obviously lost De Zerbi. Upon recording this, we don't know who's going to replace him, but you have to back Tony Bloom. You have to back the ownership at Brighton to get it right. I don't think it'll be an out of this world campaign. I don't think they'll be back in Europe anytime soon, but I think they'll stay in the Premier League. They've proven it recently. They play good enough football to get it right, to control games, and to get enough points to stay in the Premier League. Everton in 11th. I don't know about future FFP. I think Sean Dyche will be there and keep them secure. We don't know about the model of, what will this Everton side do if they sell Branthwaite for £65 million? We don't know if it's going to be reinvested. We don't know if they're able to do that. We don't know if they'll be able to replace like for like. They still need more from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, in my opinion. But even if they keep the likes of Pickford, who has been linked to a move as well this summer, but if they keep 80% of the side, Decore in midfield, Onana in midfield, a lot of these players are linked, but if they can just hold on to them, then they'll absolutely be fine. It's a bit like Wolves, though. If they lose a few players, then Sean Dyche is going to have to do a miracle job, and maybe where I'm putting them is a little bit too high. But upon recording this, all those players are here. Maybe Branthwaite gives them another season. There's no reason not to. Similarly with Jordan Pickford, these guys have got England, Euro campaigns to think about. Maybe it's next season they think about these big transfers ahead of maybe the 2026 World Cup, for example. So Everton right now, they look fine. They got a great manager, one of the best defenses in the league, and I think they'll come 11th. West Ham in 10th. Lopetegui did unbelievable things with Wolves. Before the start of last season, in that kind of interim spell he had with Wolves, he was really, really good. He's a top-level manager. Let's be real. You don't get to be Real Madrid manager. You don't get to be a national team manager like Spain without some sort of success. I think he's a really underrated coach. I think sometimes maybe the career of a manager can not always be where they need to be. I don't think he is a Wolves manager, for example. I don't even think he's a West Ham manager. I think he's a level above that. I really do. He's close to Unai Emery than maybe Gary O'Neill, for example. I think he's a little bit higher than those managers. And I think certainly Gary O'Neill. So I think Lopetegui will do really well with West Ham. They've got a nucleus of a very exciting young squad. Kudus in his second season. And someone like Kudus is going to have to fill in the void potentially of Paqueta, who might not even be at the club or at the club and unable to play. We don't know the situation about that at the moment. Doesn't look good. But if West Ham can, get the ball to Kudus, James Ward-Prowse needs a big season as well. I feel like his form drops off in the back end of last season. Obviously picked up a couple of knocks and injuries as well. Then I think West Ham will be absolutely fine in the middle of the table. Crystal Palace, we talk about Michael Elise going to Chelsea again. He signed a brand new contract in the summer. Glasnow's come in. He's a brand new manager in the Premier League. So you have to gamble that a few of these players aren't going to leave Crystal Palace early. And I think there'll be an unbelievable force in the Premier League if they can keep that four, which is Eze, which is Mateta up front, Elise, and the manager, because the manager's got them playing 3-4-3. It's absolutely ridiculous how good Palace looked at the back end of last season. Absolutely smashing Aston Villa. And I think that form will carry them forward. But it's the classic thing with Palace. I think they win periods of form in the season, and for some reason it never transpires to European football. It never transpires to a cup. It's not easy in the money kind of dominated league that the Premier League is. But I actually see a world where they could finish higher than ninth if they get things really right in the transfer market. They keep the likes of Tyreek Mitchell, Mark Gahey. These players have always been linked away from the club, but they stay season after season, and particularly Mark Gahey. What a centre-back he is. With Glasnow's tutelage, these guys could be going even higher in the league. But for right now, where they sit is ninth in the table. Next up, Newcastle United. I'm factoring in potential one of Isaac or Bruno to leave. And I actually foresee an issue for Eddie Howe. I think he kept the job this season just because form did pick up. And I think it wasn't the worst end of the season for Newcastle United. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the worst. And I think if they'd really been flat at the back end of the campaign, then I think he would have been sacked. I'll be completely real. But I think it was 3 wins in the last 5 and a draw in there as well. And Isaac's form was looking unbelievable. So I think he'll keep his job at the start of the season. But I think there's a chance that Eddie Howe loses it midway through the season, particularly if they're miles off the Champions League form to get back in the Champions League. The Newcastle story's gone under the radar a little bit. We don't hear about the money. We don't hear about the Mbappes of the world coming to Newcastle United. I think they've been really hindered by FFP. And Newcastle United will have another flat season, in my opinion, just because I don't think they can bring in the quality needed to compete. And I don't think they've got a similar coach to Unai Emery. I don't think they've got a similar coach to even Jurgen Klopp when he took over Liverpool, when they were a Europa League side and got them back to the heights where Liverpool deserved to be. I don't think Newcastle have that. They have the money. They can't quite use it. I don't think they've got the coach quite to get them back into the top 4 consistently. So I've put them in 8th. 7th, Tottenham Hotspur. I think Son's getting a year older. I think Ange Postecoglou's got a good chance of being sacked. I don't think the way he conducted himself at the back end of the season would be conducive to Daniel Levy. I think the style of football is fantastic when it gets going. And if they start the season like they started last season, then it gives him more time to stay in the job, of course. But I just don't see with this current squad how they can outcompete the sides that I've put above them. I really don't. They're better than Newcastle. They're better than West Ham. Are they better than Aston Villa? Really? Especially if Villa really reinvest in the squad. And they've got really big owners, Aston Villa. And suddenly Spurs are competing with Aston Villa. Suddenly Spurs are competing with a Chelsea that are a year down the line with players that have developed and understand the league a little bit better. I don't think Spurs have done enough. But I might be wrong. But upon recording this, I think the flatness of the end of last season will catch up with them and they'll start slow. I think they'll come 7th. 6th, Aston Villa. I think the Champions League campaign will be a bit of an issue for them. I could see them getting smashed in the Champions League, dropping to the Europa League and winning that, to be honest with you. They've got a great spine. They've got a great manager. And Ollie Watkins banging in goals. Don't forget, he's in the kind of age category where he can keep going. I mean, the form that we saw in the Premier League for him, why not perform that again and again for the next couple of years for Aston Villa? Douglas Luiz in midfield, John McGinn, these guys are still going and at a good age category. I just don't think they can balance the Champions League and other competitions. And I think eventually the money will catch up to Aston Villa of the other sides competing with them. But you never know. Aston Villa might go into the transfer market and get a couple of crazy players. Maybe they bring Jack Grealish back in and suddenly it's a whole different narrative. But I think 6th for Villa is completely fair and respectable. At 5th, Chelsea, if they'd kept Pochettino, they would have been a lot higher in my ranking, honestly, because he was getting them playing beautiful football. He had a relationship with the young players. I know he didn't have a relationship quite with the fans or the owners, but he was doing a job there. He really was. They were hard to beat. And even, you look at Chelsea's form throughout the season, it was poor against the likes of Burnley, Sheffield United, in the cup competitions as well. Particularly the way they conceded late to Liverpool, the way they conceded to Man City. There was a lack of belief and quality throughout the season. But then on the flip side, the Premier League form against the Big Six was really endearing for me. If I was the owner of Chelsea, I would have looked at how they performed against Spurs. Really good results against them. Against Arsenal. One of the Arsenal games, obviously, not the one where they got smashed. Performances against Man City as well. So this Chelsea side were competing against the Big Six. They were picking up more and more points against sides that they should be beating anyway. They were getting better performances out of assets like Caicedo, out of Mudryk, dare I say it, and Jackson, of course, and Cole Palmer. And you've now thrown the baby with the bathwater, and you might get a manager in that doesn't get the same quality out of Cole Palmer. And he's your one asset that could have got you into the top 4 if you built around him, built around Pochettino. So for me, it will be a backward step for Chelsea getting rid of Pochettino. I know my 5th position is higher than where they finished this season, but they need to be in the top 4, and Pochettino would have got them top 4 100% in my honest opinion. But instead, I think they'll be 5th. 4th, Manchester United. I think the FA Cup win will galvanise them. Another season with Kobbie Mainoo, with Garnacho, with Rashford, who will be absolutely biting the bullet to get back into this Man United side and really influence things. If Ten Hag stays, there will be this kind of crest of optimism, in my opinion. If there's a new owner, if there's a new manager with the new owner, with Ineos. Whatever we say about Manchester United, they do react to new managers, whether that's long-term or not. Jose Mourinho got a tune out of them. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's caretaker got a tune out of them. Even Louis van Gaal in his first and only season got them the FA Cup. So if a new manager comes in, do not be surprised. Like Roy Keane predicted, how a leopard never changes its spots. These Man United players might react really well, play their best, work really hard, run through brick walls, and maybe give up on this manager in 12 months' time. So either way, I think Man United will just about nick the top 4. That's my honest opinion. In 3rd, this is a big controversial decision, but I still see the gap in quality between the 3 that I've predicted to come 3rd, 2nd and 1st, and the rest is just too big to surmount, in my honest opinion. That is Liverpool. Now, Liverpool in the last 5-6 years have been a championship club, 6 out of the last 7 years, basically. Maybe a little bit less than that. So they've got so much Champions League experience, they'll be able to balance the competition. Don't be surprised if they go on a run in it as well, which is a lot of people are not talking about that, because this is a side that have got so much success in Europe, as we all know. The likes of Szoboszlai, McAllister in their second seasons. Can Arne Slot get a tune out of Darwin Núñez? Can he get a tune out of Diaz as well? Salah has still got so many goals in him. Jota, I've got so many goals in him. Quansah will be a whole different player with an extra year of experience. Trent as well. So there's so much quality in this Liverpool side. I think Arne Slot will come in and complement a lot of what Liverpool are doing. Is it enough to go back to winning the Premier League if Klopp can't do it with this side? I don't really think Arne Slot can. I think he'll make a couple of smart signings. I think he'll get a lot right and a few things wrong. But an average sort of aggregation of what Arne Slot can do at Liverpool is more than enough to get them in the top 4. I think he'll get them 3rd. Right, 2nd, I have to say it's going to be Man City in 2nd. And this is based on what I saw in the FA Cup final. Now, obviously, you can lose the FA Cup final. City did it to Wigan in 2013. There are cup upsets. The FA Cup final does not symbolise everything wrong or right with a football club. It's a cup competition. It's a once-off event, of course. But I saw a lot of patterns of play, a lot of rhythms in what Guardiola did in that game that were a little bit concerning. It looked like a side that was a little bit at the end of its cycle, a little bit at the end of its kind of ability to generate new ideas on the pitch. It looked a little bit flat fitness-wise. This is a side that have won the treble, and then suddenly they're talking about winning the Synctuple in terms of winning a Super Cup, a Club World Cup, potentially a back-to-back treble. It must have been heavy for the players. I think it caught up with them, honestly, because they must have been sat there thinking, well, we've got to beat Real Madrid, and then we've got to beat maybe Bayern Munich in the semis. We've got to beat all these other sides. And I think fatigue is a massive factor. And that Wembley pitch looked big to the City players, in my opinion. I think there was a slight dip in speed and agility going across that pitch. And it looked like a side that was a little bit leggy and a little bit flat. So, going into the start of next season, without a Bernardo Silva potentially, with Guardiola potentially, upon recording he's not confirmed anything officially, but if Guardiola comes out in the summer and says this is my final season, that will really hurt a lot of City players, in my opinion. And that's not to say it would be a side that downs tools. That'll not to be sort of saying that Man City can't respond like Liverpool did with Klopp and go on a really good run and push towards 4 trophies like Liverpool did for a large part of last season. But I think ultimately this City side, unless I see some crazy new signings come in and really change things, the likes of Mateus Nunes have come in, Kovacic can come in, haven't really changed things. Doku's an exciting one, 1,000,000%. De Bruyne's at the end of his kind of prime years. So it's just a season of transition. City can't win everything. I can't be sitting here really and saying City are going to win 5 in a row. I think City are good enough to win 5 in a row if everything clicks. But I'm just debating if everything will click when there's one side in particular who are primed to win the Premier League. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Right, I've got to predict Arsenal to win the Premier League. I think they've got so many players that are just going to be building that machine to get over 90 points. I think all Mikel Arteta needs to do at the start of August is just say, here's the points total. We're going to aim for 92. Let's aim to surpass it, but 92 and we win the Premier League title. I don't think any Arsenal fan can sit there and moan at me or any other City fan or any other rival fan saying you get 89 points, you deserve to win the Premier League. I don't think that's right, based on the last 10 years of averages, which is 91 to win the Premier League. So I think it will be very similar to how Liverpool got 97 points. They came second to Man City with 98. In the following season, they got 99 points. I think this Arsenal side have got a good chance to get 92, 93. The likes of Jurgen Timber coming in, if they get someone like Isak up front, Ivan Toney up front, who can get them a little bit, an easier conversion of goals to chances. I think there's a massive opportunity there for Arsenal. And they have to take it. If they can't win it next season, it will get to the point where the likes of Saka, dare I say it, Rice and Saliba will be, if they're really ruthless with their careers, we'll be looking at what is the debate about Arsenal? What are we fighting for? Can I go to Real Madrid? Can I go to Bayern Munich? Can I go to Man City? All bias aside, that will be a genuine argument because it can't be 5-6 years without success. It really can't be. So I think Arteta will get it right. There'll be moments in the season where there'll be doubt, in my opinion, but I think Arsenal will just get there because history says you don't win 5 in a row in England. History says you never win 4 in a row. And for City to win 5, I think a lot would have to align. Maybe that'd be Guardiola actually coming out and saying, I'm going to sign a contract extension, which I see from certain Man City sources. So if that happens, then I think Arsenal might be up against it. But the way Man City are lying a little bit flat, losing a cup final to Manchester United, I think it's the perfect opportunity for Arsenal to kick on and win the Premier League. Thanks very much for watching. Make sure you check out my most recent video somewhere here. And I'll see you very, very soon talking about the Champions League final coming up very, very shortly. Leave your comments down below. Who do you think will win the Premier League? Who will get relegated? And I'll see you very, very soon.